Good morning and welcome to Monday. I'm sure we all love hearing that, especially after a weekend. So today I want to talk a little bit about motivation. And the reason for this is because I have a hard time with it. So for me, motivation usually comes in the form of needing to do something for somebody else, whether that be I'm doing my job and they ask me to do XYZ, I feel more motivated to do it because somebody has asked me to do it. Or on the weekends, I get up usually and I make coffee because my husband really wants coffee in the morning. So I go and I make it. But the key for both of these instances is that it's for somebody else. When it comes to doing things for myself, I find a real lack of motivation sometimes because I feel like I can wait. So I've been trying to work on that a lot because it really, really is terrible when you're staying at home and you can't find the motivation to do something as simple as get out of bed sometimes. And it's not always because I'm tired, because I'll wake up, I've had a great night's sleep, I feel good and ready to go in the morning, but I still don't really feel like getting up. Yeah, that can be really hard. So just like getting up and being like, I slept well, I feel good, I'm not in a bad mood, it's not a bad day, but I just don't feel like getting up. And I think it all kind of boils down to the things that motivate us, the things that get us going, the things that get us up and out of bed. I remember when I was in high school, I hated getting up in the morning because it meant that I had to drag myself out of bed, get ready and go to school, and I hated school. Not because I don't like schooling itself, I just didn't like the people I went to school with for the most part. It wasn't a pleasant experience for me. So I hated getting up in the morning. When it came to college, it was a little bit easier because I like learning, so it was a learning experience and I didn't have to interact with nearly as many people. Coffee in the morning is important. But now that I'm an adult, I don't have school, it's just me and whatever I gotta do that morning. When I had to get up for work, when I was moved to San Antonio originally and I was working at a place I had to get up, I had to get to work at 8 a.m. It was kind of easy to get into a routine for me to an extent. So I would get up early in the morning, my alarm would go off, still don't want to get out, I don't think anybody ever wants to get out of bed, but I'd get up, I'd go do my routine, the whole restroom, brush your teeth, brush your hair, do your makeup, wash your face, whatever you gotta do, and then you go to the kitchen, you do that routine, do the breakfast, do the coffee, the orange juice, whatever you want to do, and then get all of my stuff together. I was usually packing lunch, so I'd pack my lunch together, get everything together, and then I'd drive to work. I'd get to work, I'd clock in, I'd do my job, I'd clock out, and then I'd come home. And first thing I would do is I would wash dishes and everything that I'd use that day from my lunch bag, clean up the kitchen, start making dinner, make my dinner, sit down, eat, go back, clean everything up, put everything away, watch TV or something, and then I'd do my bedtime routine. So I had a very structured routine during this time. And then it all changed when I met my husband. When we started dating, there were some days that it was like I was staying here, he was going over there, and so my routine got a little thrown off, and I was sleeping differently. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of sleep because he'd get home from work and text me, and I just decided to get up and start texting him back. Not always the best idea, but my routine started changing, and then when we finally moved in together, I had to figure out my new routine because I just didn't want to get up in the morning, but like on a deeper level now. I didn't want to get up because my husband was still in bed when he was on a later shift, and I didn't want to get out of bed. It was just like not my motivation anymore. But once he started to go to work early, it was easier because we were both more or less getting up at the same time. But I still didn't really want to do my routine. It was harder to do my routine. And I've been struggling with trying to figure out the things that motivate me. What is going to get me to put my routine back in order? And slowly but surely it's been things like, what do you want your routine to look like? What do you want to do? And what parts do you feel like are your parts to do? And what do you want your contribution to be? And so it's been slowly figuring out what I want to be doing, what I want the house to be looking like, and it can be a little frustrating for me because in my apartment, I didn't have a lot of stuff. It was like very minimalistic because I just started living on my own. Before that, I'd had roommates. Before that, I'd been living with my parents. So it was my first apartment just by myself. So everything I owned was mine, and there wasn't a lot of it. It was either things that I'd collected over time or things that my parents helped me with, like a stool because I didn't have a dining table. I would just eat at the bar that was by my kitchen. So things like that, it was very minimalistic, it didn't feel very cluttered, and it was really easy for me to clean because I knew where everything was supposed to go. There wasn't anybody else I had to take into consideration. But here, it's a mix. So I'm still fairly minimalistic because it wasn't a lot of stuff, but he's lived in this house a lot longer than I have, so he's just collected stuff that he bought. Maybe it broke, he said he was going to fix it. Things that we just started to collect over time, and that was really frustrating to me because I don't know where everything goes. I don't know if I can just throw stuff, and then that started to leak over to my stuff. So things that, if you look at the desk that I'm actually doing these videos at, I intentionally don't put it in there because it's a little bit of a mess. There's things like laying around everywhere, things that I need to probably clean, or I need to get rid of, or I need to organize, and it's harder for me to feel that motivation to do that because for me, for whatever reason, I developed this mentality of, well, he's not doing it, but I shouldn't do it, and that's not how it works, and he does do his part. It's hard for both of us to find the motivation to do certain things, and when we start to say, well, I can live with it being a mess for now, we start to kill our motivation to do it. And it's become a slow progress for us on the weekends to just kind of get comfortable with just being us now, because when we started dating, it was December. When we got engaged, it was April. So we'd really only been dating for about 4 months, 4.5 months when we got engaged, and then for the next year and like 2 months or so, we were planning a wedding, and that was like it felt like every weekend it was meeting with his family, meeting with my family, going to the valley, meeting with vendors, figuring out what's going on, picking colors, picking dresses, picking everything that you have to do for a wedding, which can be really overwhelming. And so every weekend felt like it had its own schedule. It was structured. We had to plan days where we weren't going to do anything because we needed days off, and it was a lot to be doing for a year. And then as soon as the wedding passed, it was okay, now we have to go through gifts, now we have to figure this out, now I have to go and do the name change, and I have to do this, and I have to do that. We have to get our stuff together, we have to make sure that all of this is done, and we were working on a bank account, we were working on this, and there was all of this transitionary stuff. And we finally, more recently, started to feel like, okay, now weekends are ours, and we can actually enjoy them again. And now it comes to finding the motivation to do things, finding that, okay, this is what my day-to-day feels like. This is what our weekends feel like when we get to spend together. We don't always want to spend it doing things that we have to do, but we do need to spend time doing that. So we've slowly started to, okay, well, dishes need to get done and I can't wait, so I'm just going to do dishes. And he'll come and join me and help. He'll rinse, or he'll put stuff away, or he'll clean up around me. I can go through things. I can remind him, hey, this is a stack of mail that you need to go through to see if it's good or trash or whatever it is. And we slowly have started to figure out what we can do together and what we can do. And motivation slowly started to come back for me because we're slowly started to make it our own space. The kitchen, I feel like I can keep it clean all the time because, as I mentioned in a few videos back, we remodeled it. We made it cleaner, we cleaned it up, we changed the surfacing, we painted, we rehung cabinetry, and it feels better, and it feels like it's both of ours because we've both put a lot of work into it. And I reorganized everything that was in the cabinets because out of the two of us, I use the kitchen the most. And now I feel like I can clean. The dishes don't feel as difficult or as frustrating to do for me, which for whatever reason is a thing for me. I don't mind washing dishes. I don't like putting dishes away, and it's a very weird thing for me. I've just learned to accept it and live with it. But it's not felt as much of a chore. It feels a little bit easier, and I don't let dishes stack up. I do them daily, and it feels more like my old routine, and I feel a little bit better doing it. And now that I figured out the kitchen, I'm trying to learn to move that to the next room. figuring out where we're putting the living room, where we want to reorganize stuff, how we want to do stuff. And sometimes for certain rooms it's different. For the kitchen, I kind of had free range because, like I said, I'm the one who uses it more frequently. But when it comes to the living room, he's the one who uses it more frequently. He's got the setup going, he's got the projector, he's got the screen, he's got his sound system, he's got all of the junk that's in that room that he uses. And I don't feel as comfortable moving everything around, because if I do, I don't really use it, so it really affect me too much. It'll affect him a lot more because he's the one who's always in there and changing the room and using it and playing games or paying bills or whatever he needs to do. Pay bills because he's got the computer hooked up to the projector. And things like that. So it's more of a, I need to find time to have him do stuff, or I need to find time to ask him how he doesn't want stuff moved, or what's okay to move, or what I can do. And asking for his help and figuring out when we gotta do this. But finding and building that motivation takes time. And for a while, I let it kind of get to me that maybe I'm just lazy. Maybe it's just a difficult thing. Maybe I'm not going to be able to do this. Maybe I'm just not the person to be motivated to do things. Or maybe I'm just a slob. And it lets you sink lower and lower into yourself instead of just doing something about it. So I finally just said, you know what? Let's do it project at a time. And it was going through the cabinets. Okay, well, let's take it all out and put it all back. And sometimes it's not really about throwing stuff away. It's just about putting everything together the way you want it to be, the way it makes you feel comfortable. And going through it and, well, we said we're going to throw this away, so put this away. Or we don't use this as frequently, so I'm going to put it in a place that doesn't need to be easily accessible. And different things like that that we've slowly but surely started to do. And then things like my vanity. I let it get pretty bad because I don't feel the motivation to, but I'm slowly starting to, okay, what do I need to do to organize it? Do I have to make it exciting for me? Do I have to just set aside time? Do I have to just come and sit here and not leave here until I at least do something different? And slowly figuring out the things that motivate me, and berating myself about not doing it isn't something that's healthy or helpful to me. It's just putting one foot in front of the other, figuring out, okay, well, let's do this, let's do that, what is this, have I used this in forever, and trying not to let myself talk myself out of not throwing stuff away. Sometimes I'll grab something and be like, this is a candle from 2016 that I got at one of my friend's baby showers. It's almost completely done, as you can see, but I have a hard time throwing stuff like this away. So I have to figure out how to compromise with myself. So it's not the candle itself that I don't want to throw away. It was the top, because it tells me where I got it and what the occasion was. And it was celebrating that she was pregnant with her daughter and eventually gave birth to her. And she's one of our little members of our friend group. So I have to negotiate. Okay, well, if it's that important to me, throw the candle, keep this. Because I like to try to keep things like this, because I'll tell myself, oh, well, it's a container, you'll use it for later. I never do, but I keep it and I keep saying the same thing. So separating things like that, throwing it. The top is a lot less space consuming, and I can just put it in a box of stuff that is memory based, and I can keep it or I can get rid of it at some point. And just slowly not beating myself down for not being able to just throw the whole thing, but just compromising. Okay, well, let's keep a little bit of it, or let's let go of all of it. And sometimes it's just, you know what, it just needs to go, and then you throw it in the trash and you don't think about it. You just let it go and you move on to the next thing, just like continuing to put one foot in front of the other. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've noticed when people talk about not being motivated, is that they get stuck on stuff. If you can't decide, like, well, I can't throw it away because it's important, and I can't separate it because it's a set, or I can't just, I can't keep it, I can't, put it aside. Say, we'll decide later. And that has probably been the biggest help to figuring out how to organize my stuff. And that's been to divide it up. Okay, this is trash, this is keeping, this is I'll think about it later. And just keep doing that. And there's not as much stuff as you would think that goes into I'll think about it later. But it helps declutter my brain and say, I'm not gonna spend an eternity trying to figure out if I need to throw away this old candle. I'm just gonna put it aside, And sometimes I'll, get through and I'm making a lot of progress, then I look at it 5 minutes later and I'm like, you know what, that is trash, and throw it away. Or, you know what, I did actually need something like this, and then I put it in the keep pile. And it makes it easier if you just put it aside and then come back to it later sometimes. Other times it's like, I'll give it to my husband and be like, I can't decide what to do with any of this stuff. It's too sentimental, or it's just giving me anxiety trying to figure out what to do with it. And he'll just be like, okay, takes it. The majority of the time he throws most of it away. Sometimes he'll be like, oh, this is a thing that we need for whatever, and uses it. And that's the second thing. First thing, don't pressure yourself. Second thing, ask for help. It's really not a weak thing to ask for help. It's actually a lot harder for people to ask for help than to just figure it out and struggle. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. Asking for help is, hey, I can't do this by myself, and I know that so-and-so can help me. I know that, somebody's good at putting stuff together, somebody's good at organizing, somebody's good at prioritizing. You have friends with all of these different skill sets. Use them. And majority of the time your friends are like, I would love to help, or hear later that you were struggling with it and they could have helped you, and they get upset like, hey, I could have helped you with that. I could have helped you with that. Why are you stressing over this? And we just always see it as, no, I have to do this by myself because it's my mess, or it's my problem, or it's my this, or it's my that. It doesn't matter where it comes from. It's a problem that needs solved, and you have people who are good at solving it. Ask for help. It's really not that big of a deal. You just say, hey, I'm having some problems throwing stuff away. When we were cleaning the kitchen, we had a lot of old pots and pans that we don't use anymore because we'd gotten a new set that we really, really loved. But I don't want to throw away these pots and pans because there's not anything really wrong with them. We weren't going to use them anymore. And that was hard for me because I hate throwing stuff away. So instead of just panicking about it, I called my mom and let her know what was happening, and she said, just put it in a box and we'll take it to your aunt's because they have a garage sale every weekend. I forgot about that. And I forgot that was an option, especially since I live so far away. She was like, just put it aside. The next time we come and visit, we'll take it with us, and that'll be that. I didn't waste it. I didn't give myself, stress and losing hair over it. I just called, asked for help, and I got a solution. And it took 5 minutes to just be like, okay, that's the solution I can live with. And it made it so much easier to just keep putting stuff into this that we didn't want to throw away, but we weren't going to use. And it made us feel so much better, and it's decluttered the kitchen so much that it's like, why didn't we think of this earlier? Or what was so hard about asking for help when it took 5 minutes and we had a solution with a cardboard box filled of stuff that we don't have to deal with? Motivation isn't just a you problem that has to be solved by you. You can find help from anybody you talk to, whether that be working out. I am terrible at being accountable for working out. It is probably one of the hardest things because I remember when I was in college, I really wanted to work out, and the only reason I ever actually got into a routine of working out was because my best friend at the time wanted to work out too, and so I was like, I'll keep you there, you keep me there, and I couldn't chicken out of it because I knew he was going to be waiting for me. And even if he wasn't, I got there, and it helped motivate me to be there, and then he'd show up because he knew I was waiting for him, and we held each other accountable. But when it's just me in my house saying, well, I gotta go outside and do stretches and do the crunches or the bicycles or whatever I'm doing to work out, I just go, not today, or I'm not feeling it, or I'm tired, or I don't know, I don't have a workout bra. I come up with every excuse under the sun possible. And I'd been trying really hard to get into it for the last few weeks, and then I was really frustrated, so I reached out to a bunch of people. I reached out to my sister, I reached out to my mom, I reached out to people, and then finally one of my friends was like, I got nothing better to do and I can bug the shit out of you. And I was like, you know what, that'll work. And so she sends me messages saying, hey, have you worked out today? Hey, how are you doing? And even though she's not physically here to tell me what to do or to even watch me do my workout, that's helped because I feel like, she's going to ask, and I don't want to tell her no, and I don't want to hear what she has to say if I didn't do it or whatever. It helps hold me accountable to my goals. And slowly but surely, it's made itself better. Saturday, I don't usually work out on Saturdays. I wanted it to be strictly Monday through Friday, but she asked if I'd done a thing. I don't really want to, but I was already going to church that day because I prefer to go on Saturdays at 5 p.m. because I don't want to wake up early in the morning. And so we went to church, and afterwards, I told my husband, let's just walk around the block. It's a nicer neighborhood than the one we live in, and it's not too hot outside, and most of it's shaded with trees. So we walked the block, and that was my workout for that day. It was getting me moving instead of just going home and lying down or eating and just like vegetating. And then the next day, yesterday, we were outside and we were doing stuff. We even took the time to have like a little water balloon fight because it was really hot, and we'd also been playing with the sprinklers because the grass has been dead because it hasn't been raining here. And that was exercise. We were throwing stuff. I figured out I haven't thrown anything in a really long time, and my aim is terrible, and I have lost a lot of muscle. And so it was just getting up and moving. And it's gotten